Speaking of Lucy, being mean to Charlie Brown, Duke was pretty mean to us. Like, they just smacked us off the face of the earth. And, Coach, you said on previous shows, like throughout this year and the last bit of 2024, we've got overly reliant on the three-pointer. And it showed in the first half. Like, the moment I was watching that, I was like, I've been thinking about this. Coach Burch was telling me, and he was telling the audience, we're overly reliant on the three, and it's going to bite us. Well, it most certainly did. Yeah, we got like 25 three-pointers against BYU, but I feel like we used too much gas on BYU and didn't use enough of it on Duke. Jeffrey, what do you think?
No, I agree 100% on that assessment. I told Alabama fans on Twitter and other, like all across the internet, do not get super thrilled about this performance against BYU and making that be the game that you feel like we're going to win it all now. I picked Alabama to win it all in my bracket because I was riding my team, right? But I legit thought they had a shot. But that game wasn't, the determining factor in changing my mind that, hey, they're going to be a team that's going to win it all this year. And for a lot of people, it was because of that performance. And what people seem to forget, you can't replicate that type of performance 2 games in a row typically. You rarely see that. And if you do it 2 games in a row, you're not going to do it 3 games in a row. And Duke's a much better team than BYU. BYU is a very good team. They don't defend at the level Duke does, and they don't have the amount of talent and athleticism that Duke does. Duke, I mean, you talk about getting overly reliant on the three. I agree 100%, but also, like, Duke didn't really allow Alabama to get quality looks for the majority part of the game. There were a few open threes they missed. But at that point, the game was out of reach, and they were rushing the shots because they were trying to come back in the game. It's hard to come back when you're down by that much. But early in the game, they ran them off the line. They ran Sears off the line. Made Sears drive the ball, and against the trees, he couldn't do anything. He's too small. He's a great player, but he could not do anything against the trees. All of his layups were altered. Malawatch for Duke altered all of his shots. Didn't block hardly any of them, but he altered all the shots. Duke's length and talent and athleticism got to Alabama, which is it's not easy to do because Alabama is a very talented team. But I agree 90% of the time on the overly reliant part on the three, but nothing would have helped Alabama win that game unless they hit that many threes, and they didn't. So they had no shot with because they couldn't score in the paint.
Yeah, following up what you're saying is what I would say. I'll also add to it is that coaching basketball and you got to have multiple plans. And one thing Alabama's missing, all right, which Auburn has, is the hammer. Like the big guy down low, like Shaquille, the big guy down low, like Joni Brom, there with Auburn, so that if you're running down there, flogging up those threes and all that kind of stuff, it's great when they're raining down and like they did against BYU. But then, kind of like Florida and Auburn, I mean, they have the trees, that can run around and Mark Sears, that kind of, challenge, speed, size, that can challenge and lock down the threes. You're not getting the threes today, buddy. All right. So then what do you got to have? You got to have the hammer down low, and Alabama does not have that. Auburn does. Duke does. Other teams do. And Alabama, that's the missing link. I mean, I like to speed it up, hurry up, and when it works, it's great. It's awesome. But Alabama, here we are, year 3, year 4. It's not only me. I mean, it's both of you. We agree. I mean, Alabama, running down, flogging up 3, that's great when it works. But what's your backup plan when you have a team that physically, athletically can match up and just challenge those threes? And Alabama does not have an answer. There is no backup plan. And so until they get, somebody, a hammer down in the middle that they, when it doesn't work, they can throw it down there and that guy is the man. And Alabama doesn't have it. And they have not had that. And so consequently, it's just going to continue to be the same repeating record, blah, 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 blah. It works when it works. When it doesn't work, it's ugly. Ugly.
I agree with that. I also think, too, that when you look at who Nate Oates brought in, he tried to have the trees per se, like bringing in Cliff Omarori. He's fine. He's a fine player. I think he thought he was going to improve more. Didn't really do that. Jaron Stevenson came from Carolina. That's a guy that a lot of people felt that he would really improve. Hasn't really done that. Aiden Sherrill, very talented guy. Didn't really pan out yet. Still could. Grant Nelson's tall, but he's lanky. He's more like a stretch 5 or 4 or whatever you want to call it. So it's like just looking at their depth at the center and power forward position. He brought in guys, just none of them really panned out. And I feel like a lot of people do get so caught up in, the guards and how the game's transitioned away from like dominant bigs like Shaq and stuff like that to having guys that can, like, basically the whole team can spread it out and shoot threes. Even the bigs. You see, like, even Michigan, like that, Danny Wolf's like 7'1" and he's shooting threes. I mean, guys like that can just stretch the floor. But at the end of the day, though, to have a complete team, like you said, Johnny, a complete team, you have to have your guards that can shoot the ball, your wings that can shoot the ball and be dynamic, but you have to have that one guy, that one dominant player down low that can get the rebounds, that is just going to be a force down low. And even if he's not scoring, can set those elite screens to get guys open, those driving lanes. And that's definitely what Alabama did not have. They did not have a guy setting screens for anybody.
Yeah. Here's another add to the dynamic. All right. So when, the threes aren't working, they're not raining down. But Alabama's still pushing. All right, so there's a point where you got to say, okay, they've got us on the threes. They're too athletic, so we're not going to try to score 90 points. We're going to run an offense. We're going to, try to throw it down low. We're going to be, kind of like, just slow it down. Alabama just constantly wants to keep it going, but there's a point too that you can slow it down if you got the players, the right mix and that kind of stuff. The hammer. If you have something like that, then slow it down. Okay, we'll play possession ball with you. But other teams can do that and play the low score game. Alabama's just too reliant on, if they score 90, they're going to win. But what happens when somebody can, I'm going to score 90? What are you going to do? You don't have they don't force an offense. We're just going to blah, 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 run the clock. And it's bad. You got to have to win a national championship, you got to be able to, do it all in essence. You got to be able to run fast if that's required. You got to be able to slow it down and run the clock, and you're okay with winning 60 to 59.
Yeah, you got to be able to win a lot of different ways. I agree. I
mean, different ways. And Alabama just chooses.
Houston almost lost to Purdue. Like they were almost out of that game. It looked like they could lose. It was going to go to overtime. They found a way to win 62-60. Houston is probably the outlier of all the teams left because Auburn can put up 90 if they want to. Florida can put up 90. Duke can put up 90. Houston doesn't. I mean, they're a defensive first team. I mean, that Tennessee had 15 points at the half. 15 points at the half. Houston plays the complete antithesis of the other teams. It's all defense. They can score a little bit, but it's all defense. But they can score enough that with their great defense to be able to win those grinded out games. But I think to your point, Johnny, it's about winning in different ways. You have to be able to win those 90 to 88 games when they're there. But if you're not feeling it that day, you have to be able to win those games 65, 63, or 62.
Alabama they're just going to keep flogging up threes, and they're just going to try to sooner or later somebody's going to get hot, somebody's going to hit one, we'll all get excited and we'll all get here it comes and that kind of stuff, and then sometimes you just it's not going to happen, but Alabama just keeps wanting to run it, and then there's no backup plan, and you got to have one. And Alabama for 3-4 years now has not had a backup plan for those teams that are a matchup nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, when they're in a matchup nightmare, crap, it's okay to win 50 to 49. It's okay. Crap, that's what it takes. But Alabama just.
Yeah. But
I see it, Jack.
But I'll tell you this though, it's amazing that we're even going to Elite Eights and Final Fours because like 10 years ago, that wasn't even possible. Heck, it wasn't even possible for Auburn. And it was like the moment like Auburn was going there 2019, we thought to ourselves, we want to get to where they're going. We're getting NATOs. And I'll be honest, I love that we're even going to a Final Four. We're even going to an Elite Eight.
I agree with that, Jackson. I mean, you're right because like sometimes, like I can imagine, like I know it's off topic, but like Indiana football, right? Like 3 years in a row they win 11 games, and then people are gonna be like, "When are we gonna win that 12th game?" And it's like, and that's hypothetical, but you know what I'm saying? Like people get to the point where somehow that's not enough. Because I mean, I can see it, some Alabama fans, and Johnny you're absolutely right. Like we're so close, and that's what's frustrating. Like we have had 3 or 4 great teams now, and we can get there, but we're not getting there because we're not taking that final step. And hopefully, NATOs will eventually figure that out or do that.
Yeah, that's the point.
But at the same time, looking at Jackson's point, it's like we've sucked in basketball for so long. Like this is still awesome. It's still fantastic. So I see both sides of that. It's tough when you're that close though, and you know that adjustment or two that can be made that could get us all the way. And it's not there. But at the same time, I see what Jackson's saying, too. He's right.
Yeah. That's frustration. We all see it. And I know Coach Oates, I know he sees it and everything. And I guarantee he's going to try to, find that hammer. And then you're stuck with the hammers go other places, stuff like that.
On the
we have to have the the ability, if they match up well and we can't run, we got to be able to have the ability to slow down, just not start just throwing up crap.
Yeah.
But
on the bright side, though, gentlemen, Tennessee's never going to a Final Four. They're never going to a Final Four as long as Rick Barnes is there.
Rick Barnes has a ceiling.
Well, let me ask you this. All right, well, now we're down to the Final Four. Who you got?
Bama was my pick, so now my bracket's completely busted.
Oh, well, now you're down to 4.
I felt like, unfortunately,
I think it's Auburn or Duke. It's going to be Auburn or Duke to me. I don't know who wins that game, but I think Auburn and Duke's going to be in the championship.
I'm going Florida.
I'm just like,
who do you think, Jackson?
Anybody but Duke at this point.
Who do you think, Jack?
Florida. Unfortunately, Duke.
You do. All right. I'm
gonna puke.
I got Florida.
I don't know, man. I kind of think Duke too, but I don't want it to be Duke. I really don't. I don't want it to be Duke. I don't really want it to be Auburn either. But I kind of get Jackson's point where it's like, yeah, they're representing the state of Alabama. But you can't root for a rival, man. I mean, the thing is, I'm a Carolina fan, so I don't want Duke to win. I'm an Alabama fan, so I don't want Auburn to win.
And I'll tell you guys. I don't
want Houston to win because of Kelvin Sampson. Nah, so it's like, I mean, Florida, like, I guess.
Quite a dilemma.
I'll tell you guys. I remember when I was young, all right, and everything, and I thought that, Alabama and state of Alabama, Auburn and all that kind of stuff. But all it takes, you're going to figure out sooner or later, you're going to run into one crazy Auburn fan that is like the nuttiest. I mean, they're so whatever. Auburn, that kind of stuff. And I ran into one and I was like, after I had to listen to that, whatever. And I'm done with Auburn. I don't give a flip. I hope they lose every game.
They got nothing to even say.
I don't even care that they're from the state of Alabama. I hope they lose everything. All you have to do is run in one crazy Auburn fan. And I know for Auburn, there's one crazy Alabama fan. I understand how it works, but I ran into a crazy Auburn fan, and I'm done. I hope they lose every game and every sport, every whatever.
Oh, man.
Move to Georgia.
Oh, man. Before we know
take the whole university and put it over there on the Georgia side.
Oh, man. Cannot wait for college football season to come already. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, man.